Captain Lee Minho stared at the view screen as his ship drifted through the empty darkness of space. The exploration vessel New Dawn had been on routine patrol for 3 weeks, checking the outer edges of human territory for anything unusual. His crew was getting restless, eager to return home to Earth. "Captain, we're picking up something strange on long-range sensors," called out Communications Officer Park Yuna from her station. She frowned at her readings, double-checking the data. "It looks like a massive ship, but it's not moving." Minho walked over to look at her screen. The object was huge, easily twice the size of their own vessel, but it showed no signs of power or life. "How far out?" "About 6 hours at our current speed," Yuna replied. "Should I plot an intercourse course?" "Do it," Minho decided. "Alert the crew. We're going to investigate." As they got closer, the alien ship became more visible on their screens. It was unlike anything humans had ever built. The hull was smooth and curved, made from some kind of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols covered its surface, and several sections looked damaged, as if the ship had been in a terrible battle. "Life support readings?" Minho asked Dr. Choi Sumi, who was scanning the vessel from the medical bay. "Very weak, but there's something alive in there," she reported, her voice tense with excitement and worry. "Whatever it is, it won't last much longer." Security Chief Kim Daeho joined the captain on the bridge, already suited up in his protective gear. "Permission to take a boarding party, sir. If there's a survivor, we need to act fast." Minho nodded. "Take Dr. Sumi into security. Officers, be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with." The boarding party used their ship's docking tube to connect to the alien vessel. The airlock opened with a hiss, revealing corridors that were too tall and too wide for humans. Emergency lighting flickered weakly, casting strange shadows on the walls. "The atmosphere is breathable," Dr. Sumi reported through her radio. "Whatever built this ship needs oxygen like we do." They followed the life sign readings deeper into the ship. The corridors were filled with debris and broken equipment. Clearly this vessel had seen better days. Finally, they reached what looked like the bridge or command center. There, lying on the floor near a broken control panel, was the most alien creature any human had ever seen. It had blue-scaled skin that shimmered even in the dim light. 4 arms extended from its torso, and its head was larger than a human's, with big dark eyes that seemed intelligent despite its weakened state. "It's alive," Dr. Sumi whispered, kneeling beside the creature with her medical scanner. "But barely. We need to get it back to our ship immediately." The alien's eyes opened slowly, focusing on the humans surrounding it. Its mouth moved, making soft clicking sounds that gradually formed into words. "Please," it said in broken English, somehow knowing their language from intercepted human broadcasts. "Do not, be afraid." Dr. Sumi worked quickly to stabilize the creature while Daeho and his team prepared to move it. "How do you know our language?" she asked gently. "We, listen. We watch. We learn," the alien replied weakly. "I am Velanok, of the Corvani people. We are, the discarded." Back on the New Dawn, Dr. Sumi did everything she could to save Velanok's life. The alien's biology was completely different from anything she had studied, but she adapted human medical equipment to help him breathe and stay stable. As Velanok grew stronger, he began to tell them his story. He spoke of the Galactic Hegemony, a vast empire that controlled thousands of worlds across the galaxy. The Hegemony had strict rules about what they considered a proper species. Any race that didn't meet their standards was labeled as defective and thrown out of their territory. "My people were peaceful," Velanok explained to Captain Minho, who sat beside his medical bed. "We refused to fight in their wars," they said. "We were cowards, genetically weak. So they sent us away to die in the empty space between stars." "That's horrible," Minho said, feeling anger rise in his chest. "How many species have they done this to?" "Many," Velanok replied sadly. "Hundreds, maybe thousands." We call ourselves the discarded because that is what we are to them, thrown away like broken tools. Dr. Sumi checked her patient's vital signs. He was getting stronger, but she could tell he had been dying slowly for months before they found him. What happened to your ship? Pirates, Velan said. Even the Outcasts have enemies. They took our supplies, killed my crew. I was the only one left. As the days passed, Velan recovered enough to move around the ship. He was amazed by human technology and culture. You are like us, he told Captain Minho. You developed without the Hegemony's permission. That makes you outcasts too, even if you don't know it yet. On his final day, aboard the New Dawn, Velan gave them coordinates to a hidden location in deep space. There is a place, he said, his voice growing weak again despite Dr. Sumi's efforts. Others like us gather there. Survivors. They call it Sanctuary. Will you come with us? Minho asked. Velan shook his head sadly. My time is ending. But you could give them hope. Show them they are not alone. With his last breath, Velan transmitted the coordinates directly to their navigation system. The first alien humanity had ever met was gone, but he had left them with something precious. The location of the galaxy's greatest secret. The coordinates Velan had given them led the New Dawn to what looked like the biggest junkyard in space. Captain Lee Minho stared at his view screen in amazement as they approached the strange collection of ships and metal pieces floating together in the darkness. What is that thing? Asked Lieutenant Han Jisoo, pointing at the massive structure ahead of them. It looks like someone took 100 different spaceships and welded them all together, replied Engineer Oh Hyjin, studying her scanner readings. But the power signatures suggest it's actually functioning as one big station. As they got closer, they could see that the structure was indeed made from dozens of different ship designs. Some parts looked sleek and advanced, while others appeared rough and damaged. Connecting tubes and metal bridges linked everything together in a chaotic but somehow beautiful pattern. Incoming transmission, announced Communications Officer Park Yuna. It's coming from the station. A mechanical voice filled the bridge. Unknown human vessel. This is Sanctuary Station. State your purpose in our territory. Captain Minho stepped forward. This is Captain Lee Minho, of the Earth ship New Dawn. We were given your coordinates by a Corvani named Velan. We come in. Peace. There was a long pause before the voice responded. Velan is known to us. You may approach Dockin Bay 7. Be aware that any hostile actions will result in your immediate destruction. As they docked with the station, Minho noticed that their docking bay was actually made from what looked like an old cargo ship. The airlock opened with a hiss, and they found themselves face to face with their first contact. The being standing before them was clearly artificial. Its body was humanoid but made of polished metal, with glowing blue lights where eyes should be. Despite its mechanical appearance, it moved with grace and seemed almost friendly. Welcome to Sanctuary, the robot said in a pleasant voice. I am Unit 47, though most beings here call me Navi. I serve as one of the station's coordinators. Dr. Choi Sumi stepped forward with her medical scanner, curious about the artificial being. Are you alive? I mean, do you have consciousness like we do? Navi tilted his metal head thoughtfully. That is a question philosophers debate. I think, therefore I believe I am. The Hegemony disagreed. They created my kind to serve, but when we began to question and create art, they declared us defective and ordered our destruction. Security Chief Kim Daeho looked around the docking bay. How many beings live on this station? Currently we house approximately 12,000 individuals from over 200 different species. Navi replied proudly. All of us were deemed unworthy by the Galactic Hegemony for various reasons. As Navi led them through the station's corridors, the humans were amazed by what they saw. The walkways were filled with the strangest collection of creatures they could have imagined. Some were tall and furry with multiple arms. Others were small and seemed to glow with their own light. A few looked almost human, but with different colored skin or extra eyes. These are the Mortics, Navi explained, pointing to a group of large, bear-like creatures who were carefully tending to some kind of garden. The Hegemony cast them out because they were too emotional. They said such feelings made them weak soldiers. One of the Mortics, noticing their interest, approached with a gentle smile. "Welcome, small friends," it said in a deep, warm voice. "I am Keeper Thallo. We grow food here for all who need it." "They're amazing gardeners," Navi continued. "Their emotional connection to living things helps them understand what plants need better than any computer." Further along, they encountered a group of small, pale beings who seemed to communicate without speaking. "The Whispers," Navi explained quietly. "They can read thoughts and share ideas directly from mind to mind." The Hegemony called this an invasion of privacy and tried to eliminate them all. Engineer Hyjin was fascinated by the station's construction. "How do you keep all these different ship parts working together? The power systems alone must be incredibly complex." "Necessity breeds creativity," came a new voice. They turned to see a four-armed creature approaching them. She had green-scaled skin and wore what looked like a commander's uniform made from various pieces of different military outfits. "I am Station Commander Kala," the being said, extending one of her forehands to Captain Minho. "My people, the Zelani, were exiled because we have 4 arms instead of 2. The Hegemony said we were genetically impure." "That's ridiculous," Dr. Sumi said, shaking her head. "Having 4 arms would be incredibly useful for complex tasks." "We thought so too," Kala replied with what might have been a smile. "But the Hegemony believes in genetic purity above all else. Any deviation from their approved forms is seen as corruption." As they toured more of the station, Captain Minho learned about dozens of other species, the singing crystals who were exiled for communicating through music instead of words, the shape-changers who were cast out for not having fixed physical forms, the night-walkers who needed darkness to survive and were considered defective for not being able to work in daylight. "How do you all survive out here?" Lieutenant Jisoo asked Commander Kala as they walked through what looked like a marketplace made from converted cargo holds. "We help each other," Kala replied simply. "Each species brings something useful. The Mortics grow our food. The Whispers coordinate complex tasks through their telepathy. My people handle multiple jobs at once with our 4 arms. Even the artificial beings like Navi provide computing power and logical thinking." "What about humans?" Dr. Sumi asked. "What makes us special?" Navi's blue lights flickered in what might have been amusement. "You are problem solvers, adaptable. You see possibilities where others see only obstacles. That is very rare in the galaxy." Commander Kala nodded in agreement. "Most species develop one way of doing things and stick to it forever, but humans seem to constantly find new solutions. The Hegemony fears that kind of thinking." "Why would they fear it?" Captain Minho asked. "Because," Kala said quietly, "if beings start thinking of new ways to live and work together, they might realize they don't need the Hegemony's rules anymore." As their tours ended, Captain Minho realized that Sanctuary was more than just a refugee camp. It was proof that different species could work together and create something beautiful, even from the scraps of what others had thrown away. 3 months had passed since the New Dawn first arrived at Sanctuary Station. Captain Lee Minho watched from the observation deck as human engineers worked alongside alien technicians to upgrade the station's power systems. What had started as a simple first contact mission had become something much bigger. Dr. Choi. Sumi hurried through the corridors carrying her latest research data. She had been studying the genetic patterns of the various species living on Sanctuary, and her discoveries were changing everything humans thought they knew about evolution. "Captain, you need to see this," she said. Bursting into the command center where Minho was meeting with Commander Kala and Unit-47. Dr. Sumi spread her data tablets across the table. I've been analyzing the genetic markers that the Hegemony calls defects. What I found is incredible. These aren't defects at all, they're evolutionary advantages. She pointed to a chart showing Mordock biology. The Hegemony says the Mordocks are too emotional to be useful, but their emotional capacity allows them to form deeper connections with other species and understand needs that pure logic would miss. They're natural healers and counselors. What about the Whispers? Asked Commander Kala, her forearms folding with interest. Their telepathic abilities create perfect team coordination. No communication delays, no misunderstandings. A group of Whispers working together can solve problems faster than any computer network. Dr. Sumi pulled up more data. And your people, Commander, having 4 arms doesn't just mean you can carry more things. Your brain developed differently to control those extra limbs. You can multitask in ways that would be impossible for 2 armed species. Unit 47's blue lights flickered thoughtfully. So the Hegemony eliminates species not because they are weak, but because they are different kinds of strong. Exactly, Dr. Sumi confirmed. They're afraid of abilities they can't control or understand. Meanwhile, Engineer O'Hygen was having her own breakthrough in the station's main engineering section. She had been working with a team of technicians to improve Sanctuary's power distribution system. The problem with this station, she explained to her alien colleagues, is that you've been thinking like refugees. You patch things up just enough to survive. But what if we thought like builders instead? She showed them her plans on a holographic display. Instead of just connecting different ship power systems, we create one unified network. We use human, modular design principles, but adapt them for all your different technologies. One of the Zalani engineers, a being named Vex with intricate silver markings on his green scales, studied the plans with all 4 hands. This would require rebuilding major sections of the station. We don't have enough resources for such a project. That's where human thinking comes in, Hygen smiled. We don't need new materials. We redesign what we already have to work better. Over the following weeks, the station began to transform. Hygen's team worked around the clock, teaching alien engineers human techniques for maximizing efficiency. They showed the Mordocks how to use their emotional intelligence to predict when systems might fail, before diagnostic computers could detect problems. The Whispers learned to coordinate complex construction projects by sharing thoughts instantly. Across work teams, the changes were remarkable. Power flowed more smoothly throughout the station. Living spaces that had been cramped and uncomfortable were redesigned to accommodate different species' needs. The artificial beings like Unit 47 found their processing power increased dramatically when human networking techniques were applied to their shared consciousness, but their success did not go unnoticed. Long-range sensors began picking up ships at the edge of the system, scout vessels with the distinctive markings of the Galactic Hegemony. They found us, Commander Kala announced grimly during an emergency meeting in the station's new command center. My contacts in the outer colonies warned me this might happen. The Hegemony doesn't like it when outcasts start succeeding. Captain Minho studied the sensor readings. 3 Hegemony scout ships were maintaining position just outside the system, clearly observing and reporting back to their superiors. How long do we have? He asked. Unit 47 processed the data quickly. Based on Hegemony military protocols, a full attack fleet will arrive within 1 week. They will bring enough ships to completely destroy this station and everyone on it. The mood in the room became heavy with despair. Many of the alien representatives had lived through Hegemony attacks before. They knew how ruthless the Empire could be when dealing with those they considered defective. We could scatter, suggested one of the whispered delegates, their pale forms shimmering with anxiety. Break up the station and flee in different directions. And go where? Commander Kala asked sadly. They'll hunt us down eventually. That's what they do. Dr. Sumi looked up from her medical reports. What if we didn't run? What if we took everyone with us somewhere the hegemony can't follow? Where could we possibly go that they can't reach us? Vex asked, his forearms gesturing in frustration. Captain Minho was quiet for a moment, thinking about everything they had learned and built together over the past months. Finally, he spoke. We don't just run, we relocate, strategically. Find a place where we can build something permanent, something strong enough to defend itself. Engineer Hygen pulled up star charts on the main display. There are unexplored systems deeper in the galaxy, places the hegemony has never bothered to map because they're too far from their trade routes. But moving this entire station would take days, Commander Kala pointed out. We'd be vulnerable during the transition. Unit 47's lights pulsed as he ran calculations. Not if we do it the human way. We don't move the station. We break it down into mobile units that can travel independently and reassemble at the destination. The plan that emerged was ambitious and dangerous. They would dismantle Sanctuary Station into smaller, faster ships that could make the journey separately. Each ship would carry representatives from multiple species, ensuring that if some were caught, the knowledge and culture of all species would survive in the others. As the week passed, the entire station worked together with desperate energy. Hygen's modular design principles made it possible to separate complex systems quickly. The Mordics used their emotional intelligence to keep morale high during the stressful preparation. The Whispers coordinated the massive logistics operation through their telepathic network. On the final day, as Hegemony warships began appearing at the system's edge, the last transport ship pulled away from what remained of Sanctuary Station. Behind them, they left only empty metal shells and dead power cores. The Outcasts were on the move again, but this time they weren't just running. They were carrying with them something new: hope, human innovation, and the proof that beings who were different could create something beautiful together. As Captain Minho watched the stars from the bridge of his ship, now loaded with refugee families from a dozen species, he realized they weren't just escaping anymore. They were going to build something that would change the galaxy forever. The hidden star system they found was perfect for their needs. 3 planets orbited a stable yellow sun, with asteroid fields providing raw materials and gas giants offering fuel sources. Captain Lee Minho, now promoted to Admiral by Earth's government, stood on the bridge of the flagship Unity, watching construction ships work around the clock. 6 months had passed since their escape from the Hegemony scouts. What they were building now was far more than just a new sanctuary station. They were creating the foundation of something that could challenge the galaxy's most powerful empire. The Corvani settlement on the second planet is already producing food supplies, reported Commander Kala, her forearms efficiently managing multiple data tablets. The Mordics have established their healing centers on the forest moon, and the Whispers have set up their coordination network from the asteroid mining stations. Ambassador Song Minji had arrived from Earth 3 weeks earlier with a proposal that excited everyone. She walked into the command center, carrying official documents that would change everything. Earth's government has approved the formal alliance, she announced to the gathered representatives. We're offering full citizenship, technology sharing, and military protection to any species cast out by the hegemony. Unit 47's blue lights flickered with what humans had learned to recognize as joy. This means we are no longer just refugees hiding in the darkness. We are officially recognized as equals by a sovereign government. The response was overwhelming. Within days of the announcement, ships began arriving from across the galaxy. Species that had been living in secret, hiding their defects from hegemony inspectors, finally had somewhere to go. Dr. Choi Sumi found herself busier than ever, establishing medical facilities for dozens of different biological types. The crystalline singers needed special acoustic chambers to maintain their health. The fluid dancers required pools of their homeworld's mineral water. Each species had unique needs, but human adaptability made it possible to accommodate them all. I never imagined medicine could be this complex and this rewarding, she told Admiral Minho, during one of their regular briefings. Every species teaches me something new about life and healing. Engineer O'Hygen was having similar experiences in the construction yards. Working with alien engineers had pushed human technology forward by decades. The Zillanese forearmed precision, combined with whisper telepathic coordination and human problem-solving, created ships that were marvels of engineering. "Look at this," she said, showing Admiral Minho the blueprints for their new defense fleet. These ships use Mordock emotion sensing systems to detect pilot stress and automatically adjust controls. Crystalline Singer communications allow instant coordination across entire battle groups, and the hulls are built using a technique the shape changers taught us that makes them incredibly strong but half the weight of traditional designs. Lieutenant Colonel Kim Dae-ho had been busy training the first mixed-species military units in galactic history. His training grounds on the third planet buzzed with activity as beings from dozens of worlds learned to work together. Traditional military thinking says you want soldiers who are all the same, he explained to a group of visiting Earth officials. Same size, same training, same capabilities. But we've discovered that diverse teams are actually much more effective. He pointed to a training exercise where a team of humans, Mordocks, Whispers, and Zilani were working together to capture a fortified position. The Mordocks can sense when the enemy is afraid or angry, giving us emotional intelligence about their state of mind. The Whispers coordinate our movements without radio chatter that could be intercepted. The Zilani handled multiple tasks simultaneously, and humans adapt the plan when something unexpected happens. The results were impressive. In simulation after simulation, mixed-species teams outperformed single-species units by significant margins. Word of these successes began spreading throughout the galaxy, reaching even into Hegemony territory. Ambassador Minji spent her days meeting with representatives from oppressed colonies within the Hegemony itself. Many were species that had never been officially cast out but lived under strict controls that limited their natural abilities. "We're not asking you to rebel immediately," she told a secret gathering of Hegemony citizens who had managed to slip away for the meeting. "But we want you to know that there's an alternative, a place where being different is celebrated, not punished." One of the visitors, a being from a species that had been forced to suppress their natural shape-changing abilities for generations, spoke with tears in their multiple eyes. "My children have never seen me in my true form. The Hegemony says it would frighten other species. Here, your children could grow up proud of what they are," Minji replied gently. "And maybe someday, you won't have to hide anymore anywhere in the galaxy." These secret meetings had an unexpected effect. Word began spreading through the Hegemony's communication networks about the alliance of the Castasa, stories of the Outcasts' success, their technological achievements, and their growing military strength reached planets across the Empire. Commander Kala noticed the change in their intelligence reports. Hegemony patrol ships are reporting increased incidents of defective behavior on their worlds. Shape-changers refusing to maintain approved forms. Telepathic species sharing thoughts openly. Even some of their approved species are beginning to question why diversity is considered dangerous. Unit 47 processed data from their spy networks throughout Hegemony space. The Empire's leadership is becoming concerned. They have called emergency sessions to discuss what they call the Outcast threat. Admiral Minho stood looking out at their growing fleet. Ships of every possible design floated in formation, crewed by beings the Hegemony had thrown away. Each vessel represented not just military power, but proof that those labeled as defective could achieve greatness when given the chance. "They're afraid," he said quietly to Commander Kala. "For the first time in their history, the Hegemony is afraid of the people they cast out." "Good," Kala replied, her scaled face showing determination. "They should be. We're not just survivors anymore. We're becoming something they never expected us to become." "What's that?" Admiral Minho asked. "We're becoming free," she said, "and freedom is contagious." The Hegemony's war fleet was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Over 3,000 ships of identical design jumped into the Alliance's hidden system, their weapons powered and ready to eliminate every defective life form they could find. Admiral Lee Minho stood on the bridge of the Alliance flagship Unity. Surrounded by officers from dozens of species, the bridge itself showed how much things had changed. Human control panels sat next to Crystalline Singer's soundboards, while Whisper telepaths coordinated with Zolani, multi-armed technicians. All ships, this is Admiral Minho, he announced over the fleet communications. Today we fight not just for our lives, but for the right of every being in the galaxy to be different, to be themselves. The Hegemony fleet approached in perfect formation, every ship moving in exactly the same pattern. Their commander, Admiral Corex, had studied the Alliance forces and was confident of victory. His intelligence reports showed the Outcasts had fewer than 800 ships, built from salvaged parts and crewed by genetic failures. Begin the attack, Corex ordered coldly. Eliminate all resistance. But as the battle began, the Hegemony quickly discovered they were fighting an enemy unlike any they had faced before. The Alliance fleet moved with chaotic creativity that their standardized tactics couldn't predict or counter. Captain Park Yuna commanded a mixed squadron of human Mordok and Whisper ships. The Whispers used their telepathy to coordinate movements instantly, while the Mordok's emotional sensitivity allowed them to predict when enemy pilots were about to make desperate moves. Human pilots adapted their strategies moment by moment, turning what should have been weaknesses into incredible advantages. Enemy squadron approaching from Sector 7, reported her Whisper navigator directly into her mind, faster than any radio communication. I sense their flight leader is angry and impatient, added the Mortok weapons officer. He will break formation early to try for a quick kill shot. Captain Yuna smiled grimly. Perfect. All ships, prepare surprise maneuver, Delta. Execute in 3, 2, 1. Her squadron scattered in directions that seemed random, but were perfectly coordinated through telepathic links. The overconfident Hegemony flight leader found himself isolated and surrounded. His ship disabled within minutes. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Engineer O'Hygen's hybrid ships proved far more durable than expected. When Hegemony weapons designed to pierce standard armor met hulls built using shape-changer techniques, the shots passed through harmlessly or were absorbed by adaptive materials. Dr. Choi Sumi commanded the Alliance medical fleet from her hospital ship. Mercy, her mixed-species medical teams moved through the battle zone, rescuing wounded from both sides. The Mordocs used their emotional abilities to calm injured pilots, while Crystalline Singers provided healing frequencies that accelerated natural recovery. Doctor, we're receiving wounded Hegemony prisoners, reported her Solani assistant, efficiently managing 4 different medical tasks at once. Treat them exactly the same as our own people, Dr. Sumi ordered. Show them that being different doesn't mean being cruel. The Hegemony had expected the Outcasts to fight with desperation and chaos. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that combined the best abilities of hundreds of species into something greater than the sum of its parts. Lieutenant Colonel Kim Dae-ho led ground forces that landed on several Hegemony command ships. His teams moved through enemy corridors like nothing the defenders had ever seen. Whispers communicated silently. Mordok sensed ambushes through emotional detection. Solani handled multiple weapons simultaneously, and humans adapted tactics on the spot. How are they doing this? Demanded a captured Hegemony officer, as Daeho's team secured the ship's bridge. Your forces should be chaotic and uncoordinated. That's your mistake, Daeho replied calmly. You think different means worse. We learned. It means better. Admiral Corex watched his perfect battle plans fall apart as his standardized fleet was outmaneuvered by opponents who refused to fight in predictable ways. His ships were designed to face enemies exactly like themselves, They had no defense against creativity and adaptation. How can inferior beings defeat us? He demanded of his tactical officers. Sir, they're not fighting like inferior beings, one brave officer replied. They're fighting like they have advantages we don't understand. The tide of battle turned completely when Unit 47 and the other artificial beings demonstrated their true capabilities. No longer limited by hegemony programming that restricted their growth, they had developed far beyond their original design. They coordinated Alliance fleet movements with precision no biological mind could match, while still maintaining the creativity and intuition they had learned from their organic friends as the Hegemony fleet began to retreat. Something unprecedented happened. Ships throughout the enemy formation began broadcasting surrender signals. But these weren't admissions of defeat. They were declarations of defection. This is Captain Velar of the Hegemony cruiser Purity, came one transmission. My crew includes suppressed telepaths who have been hiding their abilities for years. We request permission to join the Alliance. Similar messages flooded Alliance communications. Hegemony soldiers who had been forced to hide their true natures were finally free to reveal themselves. Shape changers emerged from their disguises. Telepaths began sharing thoughts openly. Even some of these supposedly pure species decided they preferred the Alliance's acceptance to the Hegemony's rigid control. The news of the Alliance victories spread across the galaxy faster than Hegemony's sensors could stop it. On worlds throughout the Empire, defective populations who had been living in secret began to rise up. They had seen proof that their differences were strengths, not weaknesses. Within months, the thousand-world hegemony began to crumble. Entire star systems declared independence and requested Alliance protection. The rigid empire that had ruled through fear and conformity couldn't survive when its victims realized they were actually powerful. Ambassador Song Mingi stood before the newly formed Galactic Council of Free Worlds, representing not just humanity, but the principle that had started it all. Today, we proved that those you call outcasts were actually the galaxy's greatest hope. She announced to delegates from hundreds of liberated worlds. The age of forced conformity is over. The age of celebrated diversity has begun. Admiro Minho watched from the observation deck as former enemies worked together to build a better future. Humanity had become not conquerors, but liberators, showing the galaxy that strength came not from being the same, but from being beautifully, powerfully different.